Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us. I should explain that normally whoever introduces the show will be saying thank you at the end, but I'm hosting a table this evening and they're meeting at 7 o'clock. But I felt I had to introduce a gentleman who's become a very good friend to me in the last 4.5 weeks or so. Is it 5 now? I've lost track. We're definitely knocking on for 5 anyway, aren't we? We have worked for Saga. I've been here 13.5 years. He was here for a while at around the same time, but we never met, but we do have lots of mutual friends. And everybody told me what a wonderful pianist he is, and I have to say he has not disappointed at all. Not just a fabulous pianist, but also a very chirpy personality. And this evening he gets a moment in the spotlight as a cabaret artist in his own right. I do hope you've had a moment to read his biography on the front page of the Today. Let's just say he's had a very busy paper round throughout his life. He took to the piano at a very, very early age and could play it immediately. So there's a talent that was found straight away. Ladies and gentlemen, to enjoy a moment or 5 with the gorgeous Dr. Simon Fricker.
Don't want to hear any more of that rubbish, do we? Good evening, folks. Lovely to see you, and thank you for coming to join me. It's me again. I really thought it would be an opportunity for me to have a little chat with you and tell you a little bit more about me. As Joe said, if you've read the programme, I started at a very early age, but so many folks have said to me over the last 5 weeks or whatever, what was my inspiration? Who did I model myself on? Who did I listen to as a young chap when I started playing the piano? So I thought I'd just spend a few minutes just sharing that with you. It could have nearly never happened, I would imagine. My father was in Lancaster Bombers in the war, and when he came out of the war, he had an elderly aunt who lived in Sheffield, and she had a pub. And there was a beautiful wooden upright piano in this pub. And my father didn't play music, but he adored listening to music. So at about that time, when my auntie passed away, there was a lot of piano smashing competitions happening around the country. People were getting rid of these big old-fashioned instruments. And my father couldn't bear the thoughts of this piano being thrown away. So it got moved to our small council house in Nottingham, where I was born, and filled half of the front room. And when I came along, much to the disgust of my sister, I don't think she was disgusted with me. I think it was the fact that my parents were 40 and my sister was 16, and suddenly they announced that they were going to have another baby. She's since told me that she was a little bit put out by that. Anyway, I then opened this piano lid at about the age of 3.5, nearly 4, and started to touch the keys, apparently. And within a very short space of time, was making music. So back to what I was wanting to tell you about was at that time, I think my father must have been fascinated. He loved music. He'd got a collection of old 78 records and old LPs and things. And as soon as I started to hear things on the radio and play them, he started to play his favourite records to me. And my grandfather was alive at the time, and of course he had a collection of 78 records as well. So my repertoire started to build from a very, very young age with a lot of material from a time long before me. And that's how basically I started. I don't know whether any of you have heard of a pianist called Charlie Coons at all. Yeah, I think that had, and actually during the last few weeks while we've been together, somebody came to me and said, have you, do you base yourself on anybody? And you sound a little bit like Charlie Coons. I have to say that one of the records that I loved listening to as a child was a collection by Charlie Coons that my father played to me. And for those of you who know Charlie Coons will know that he plays very long medleys of pieces of music. And I used to put the record on and I used to play along with this. In fact, I can still remember a little bit of the opening. You probably remember his style. He had a very pleasing left-hand style where he used to play tenths in the left hand. I'll just give you a little flavour of what I heard when I was a youngster. And so on. And so that was the beginning of one of the very first medleys I heard, and it goes on for some 20 minutes or something like that. And then at the time, other pianists were starting to appear on the television. I remember watching Opportunity Knocks, and there was a young pianist called Bobby Crush. Do you remember Bobby Crush? And he was very, very flamboyant and had the big sort of ruffs on his shirts and everything. And he played music like this, I think. That was the theme from Borsellino. I think that was the music with which he won the Opportunity Knocks competition. Then there was a lady pianist called Mrs. Mills, Gladys Mills. I used to hear, when we used to go swimming to the outdoor swimming pool in Nottingham, they used to play records, LPs of Gladys Mills. And one of my father's favourite tunes was a tune called Sleepy Time Gal, which I delighted in copying. She had a very jangly style, but also she used to put these little twiddly bits in between, and those were the bits my dad didn't like, so I took great delight as a child doing it. This was how she used to play Sleepy Time Gal. And it was those loud, jangly bits in the middle that my father wasn't very keen on. Anyway, I listened to all these pianists. Another one that I was into. I never wanted to perform. I had never had the feeling I really wanted to be on show. I like to listen and I like to copy. One of the other pianists was Victor Borge, the very wonderful Danish pianist, Victor Borge. And I remember the first time I heard him play, and my father, again, a great influence in my life, used to say, oh yes, he's a very fine pianist, but he's always joking. He never plays a full piece for you. Of course, I haven't done yet. So he used to play the Moonlight Sonata. I never forget the first time I heard that and what he sort of slipped into. Let me just give you a little flavour. And actually, as soon as I heard that, there was another television program that had come onto the television when I was a youngster, and so I started to see the potential in this myself. And this is what I did with the theme tune of a well-known television program. See if you recognise this. recognise Emmerdale Farm. Anyway, let's have some music. What happened was I had my first, I think, brush with show business when I was quite young. I was on holiday in the south, and we had big summer seasons in those days. And we had that particular summer we had the legendary now Tommy Cooper was topping the bill, and also Larry Grayson, who'd made it very big. He was now presenting the Generation Game at that time on the television. So Larry had made it big as well. And I was staying in this holiday resort, and the musical director for the show got called away to do another production by the company he was working for, and they couldn't find a replacement. And I had been playing locally at the time, at the age of, I think I was 16. And somebody came and said, would you like to take over as the musical director with the band for the show? And that was my first brush with the theatre. I didn't know at that point that I would go back to the theatre many years later. So as a child, I went in, as a youngster, I went in and did the show. And I always remember when we were rehearsing for Tommy Cooper, he was due to come over, we're in the Isle of Wight, he was due to come over on the ferry, and he never turned up for the rehearsal. He had a lady called Mary who used to travel with him. And she said, well, I'll take you through the show, gentlemen. We were in the orchestra pit, and she looked down and she said, I'll take you through the show. But she said, there's one very, very important part for the pianist to play for Mr. Cooper. So, of course, I was shivering in my boots. I'd seen this gentleman on the television. And she said, yes, it was an arrangement of Misty by Errol Garner, a famous piano tune, but it was written down, and it was very complex. It was a jazz arrangement of it, and it was written, I think, in what we called a biro in those days, on the back of an old shirt box. It was a piece of cardboard. And she said, this music is crucial for Mr. Cooper. She said, he will ask the pianist to play this music at some part in the show, and at that point, she said, you must play the music and don't stop until he tells you to. So what happened was Mr. Cooper didn't turn up for the rehearsal. She took us through the show, showed us what we needed to play where. And apparently he'd got off the Isle of Wight ferry. Everybody had got on, and he was the last person out of the bar and got off the ferry. And he tricked the stage manager who'd gone to pick him up from the ferry to bring him to our rehearsal and said, I haven't got any cigars left. Do you think we could just stop at the pub across the road? I need to get some cigars. And, of course, they never got him out. So we did the show that evening, and I was shivering in my boots, as I said, having had to stay in the orchestra pit after everybody else had finished, trying to get my fingers around this difficult arrangement of Misty. Anyway, it comes to the part in the show when I was asked to play it, and Mr. Tommy Cooper looked down from the stage at me. I was sitting there poised at the keyboard and said, right, son, play the music. I played the first note. He said, that's enough. So that was my first meeting with Tommy Cooper. And after that, I was a young magician at the time. I had such a privilege. I spent for 2 weeks every night sitting in his dressing room when the show finished until they kicked us out, him in his underpants and his string vest and his glass of gin or whatever it was. And we talked magic every night for a couple of hours when the show finished for 2 weeks. So that was my first brush with the theatre. The second brush with the theatre came a lot later. Again, I was on holiday, and at the time, a local company was performing the musical Mac and Mabel. It was a new musical by Jerry Herman that he released in, I think it was 1974. Later on, in 1982, the overture from Mac and Mabel became a very big hit for the ice skaters Torval and Dean, who came from Nottingham, where I was born. So I went and played for this local show, got a flavour of that. The rest of it you've read, I would imagine, on the front of the programme, as Joe said. So I went and played for this show, and I've tried to remember this evening the overture from Mac and Mabel for you, because a few people have been asking for tunes by Jerry Herman during the cruise so far. So I'm going to move on now with some music. First of all, then, this is the overture from Mac and Mabel. A little bit of fun. As best my memory serves me, anyway. That's the old overture from Mac and Mabel. Quite difficult to play it just on the piano, but you get the idea of it. Anyway, I went to Jersey and met a company over there. I then went to conduct a musical at the Opera House in Jersey called Mame. You may have heard of Mame. That was written also by Jerry Herman. And while I was out there in Jersey, a local thespian, a gentleman who was very much involved in the theatre, he used to play pantomime dame and was in all the different productions, took a shine to me. And he told me about the music of Ivor Novello. A favourite of his was a song which you'll all know, I think, We'll Gather Lilacs in the Spring Again. At this point, he said that he would like to have it played at his funeral, and he got it all planned out. He said, I'd like you to play the piano, and he said, I shall go through the curtain several times and come back and do a curtain call or whatever. And be in a lavender coloured coffin. He got grand plans for it and used to take me out for dinner quite a lot. It was nice. Anyway, I think I perhaps disappointed him slightly. I didn't give him quite the attention that he was hoping for. And we lost touch over the years. Anyway, sad to say, he's now passed away. I didn't get asked to play We'll Gather Lilacs, but I believe he was cremated in a purple coffin, and it was placed on the stage at the Opera House, and everybody had a party and everything, so I missed out there. Anyway, the music of Ivor Novello, you know of various shows that Ivor Novello has written, I'm sure, Perchance to Dream, Glamorous Night, The Dancing Years. I'm going to play a few tunes by... I love music. I love melody very much. I'm not a person who improvises maybe a lot or plays jazz, but I do love melody, and I like to feel when I'm doing this sort of performance that I'm sharing the music with you rather than sitting here and showing off. I like to feel that I'm connecting. So I've picked some pieces by Ivor Novello, two pieces from the Dancing Years, which I believe was 1939, I have a feeling. Two pieces from that, which you'll know, Waltz of My Heart, and also My Dearest Dear. And then two pieces from a later musical after the war, Perchance to Dream, and a famous song, We'll Gather Lilacs. I think this was 1945, We'll Gather Lilacs, and Love is My Reason for Living. So here's a little selection of Ivor Novello for you. There we go. Short selection then. Moving on. Another musical where some of the songs from this musical have become so popular, so well written, and become so popular over the years that they've become standards in their own right. This is the musical South Pacific. I've had a couple of connections with it. I've conducted the show South Pacific many, many years ago. I also worked with an American jazz singer called Bertice Redding, who came to play the part of Bloody Mary in the West End production some years ago. And she came and did one television performance where I accompanied her when she was playing Bloody Mary. And then recently, on this cruise, Rusty Lee, of course, spoke to you and sang with me, and she played in the revival, the tour of South Pacific. She played also Bloody Mary. So you've heard one song already, Happy Talk. I'd like to play a selection from South Pacific because there are so many beautiful tunes. It was first produced, I think, in 1949. So about... yes, about 4 years later than Perchance to Dream, which I've just played. So this is a selection from South Pacific by Rodgers and Hammerstein II. Thank you very much indeed. I'm had to race through that a little bit. I am acutely aware of the time and dinner time calling and losing a half an hour. I did really want to play for you, though, this next medley. I'll go straight into it. This is a selection from Phantom of the Opera, so I'd like to take you down into the dark labyrinths underneath the Paris Opera House with me. One of my favourite shows. Some people like Andrew Lloyd Webber, some people not so keen, some people say he plagiarises music. This show was about a show within a show. They're putting on an opera, and the Phantom isn't too pleased with the way things are going, and you know the story of the Phantom of the Opera. And it was first, I think, staged in 1986. It's the second longest. I think Mousetrap is the longest running. I think Les Mis then, and I think Phantom of the Opera is one of the longest running musicals, most successful musicals. Anyway, without further ado, I'd like to play a selection from the Phantom of the Opera, and then I have one piece to finish off with. thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen. And if I can crave your indulgence for another 3 minutes, I'd love to finish off with a very special piece. When I was in my early 20s working in Spain, I went to a market with my friend Sue, who shared a room with me, when I was playing the Hammond organ for dancing at a big hotel in Spain. And we found some old cassettes for sale on the stall at the market, and one of them was Liberace. And when I studied classical piano for my performance diploma with my professor from Trinity College many years ago, she didn't like popular music, and she said there was one pianist that she got some respect for, and that was Liberace, because I think she saw the talent underneath or behind the showmanship. Anyway, I don't have that sort of showmanship. I don't have a sparkly jacket or anything, but I do like the arrangement. He took a lovely song by Jerome Kern entitled All the Things You Are. It's a very old song, and it's from, I think, 1939, from a musical entitled Very Warm for May. And he combined it with elements of the theme from Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, just a few elements here and there. Lasts a few minutes. I'd like to share it with you. So this is All the Things You Are, paying tribute to Mr. Liberace.
Ladies and gentlemen, the fantastic Dr. Simon Fricker. A man oozing talent, feeling and finesse. A moment in the spotlight. Take another bow, Simon. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Simon Fricker. Fabulous. Thank you, Simon. Thank you.